Good morning. For today's lesson, we have sensory development. Sensory development, we have sensation and perception. Sensation refers to the interaction with sensory receptors. Pag sinabi natin na sensation, may naamoy ka, may narinig ka, may nakita ka, may na-touch ka. Pag na-identify mo or na-interpret mo yung mga information na na-sense mo, doon papasok ang perception. Perception, no? Try to imagine class, yung mga bata, no? Newly born, no? Mga infant. Paano sila mag-perceive? Hindi pa sila masyadong nakakakita. They at least have to integrate mga disjointed sensation, patsi-patsi na sensation. No? What is happening around them. So, kailangan nila itong bigyan ng meaning. Let's talk about sensory development. The sight is the least developed at birth. Newborns see 8 to 16 inches in front of them. They prefer faces, unusual, interesting, and exciting images. They also prefer attractive faces. Neonates are nearsighted. The greatest gains in visual acuity is between birth and 6 months. No? Doon na malinaw yung kanilang paningin. By about 3 to 5 years of age, approximately adult level na yung kanilang vision. This is the visual acuity nila, no? It's 20/600. So, try to think malabo, no? Nakikita nila, like this, no? Si Mickey Mouse. Hindi, if they cannot identify this as Mickey Mouse, parang white and black lang siya. Shading. Tapos, magiging mas malinaw siya. Here is another example. Yung percentage of total fixation time. Yung mga bata na 2 to 3 months old, eto no, ang tinitignan nila, mas marami tumitingin sa faces. Pagka simple lang, konti lang ang tumitingin. Yung fixation time. They like complex to simple visual stimuli. They tend to show preference to human face and draws attention because of the content of the face or complexity of arrangement. We do not know really. We cannot ask children why they are looking at faces. Mas interested sa kanila. Okay, they try to study eye movements of 1 and 2 months old. Pagka 1 month old, nandun siya sa labas. No, nasa edges of object. Pagka lumaki na, no, naging 2 months old, ang nangyayari na, from the edge inner, no, papunta na dun sa loob, yung kanilang tinitignan. If you try to think din, hindi pa ganun din kalinaw yung kanilang vision. Kaya yung sa 1 month, no, mga edges yung tinitingnan nila. Tapos you know na that this improve. Kasi biglang, so I assume, nakita na nila by second month, kita na nila yung edge, yung hangganan. So, nandun na sila sa loob. Okay, the visual cliff. This is a popular experiment, no, ni Eleanor Gibson and Richard Wolff in 1960. They want to test early 3D perception. What happens if you're going to look at the image, yung bata nilagay nila dun sa may checkered, no? Tapos akala ng bata may drop, malalaglag siya. Pero sa totoo naman, it's a glass, hindi naman malalaglag yun. Most infants refuse to crawl across the visual cliff. Crawling, no matter when it begins, seems to increase an infant's fear of heights. So, during this time, yung mga bata, nakaka-develop sila ng fear of heights. Ang sinasabi dito, class, yung visual cues ng 3D perception, yung pag-perceive ng bata. Sa 3D, no, sabay ng pag-crawl nila. So, ibig sabihin, yung mga bata na mas, sabi dito mga 8 months to, no, below 8 months, they do not show fear. Parang curious pa sila what's gonna happen. What is the implication of this? The everyday exploration of infants gives them clues about things or objects to avoid when exploring. Now, this research indicates that when humans and some animal species have innate no mechanism for depth perception. These innate abilities require visual experience in order to develop and become fully functioning. Okay, we are not born with the ability to discriminate and perceive depth. The ability manifests as soon as we can crawl. Now, humans are not born fearing height, but we develop fear in infancy. Let's go to hearing. Hearing is the most developed at birth. In the womb, babies know the sound of mother's voice. Diba? Alam na nila, pwede ka na nga magpatugtog ng music, maririnig yun ng bata. Okay. Pag tayo sa music naman, yung sa auditory perception, yung stimulus or yung music, it needs to be louder than that needed for adults. No? The ability to hear begins prenatally. Infants can differentiate changes in melodies and sounds. No? This is a skill required to learn language. They can also differentiate their mother's voice from others. Infants are more sensitive than adults to high and low frequencies but not to the middle ranges. Okay, imagine again class, no? Yung mga bata, hindi pa sila masyadong nakakakita. So, they would really depend on their auditory perception. Sabi pa nga rito, infants of 4 months use environmental cues to locate the source of sound. Ibig sabihin, nag-iisip sila no, kung saan nanggagaling yung ah, source of sound. Example, halimbawa kung hindi ka nagbe-breastfeed tapos tinitimplahan mo ng dede or milk yung bata, no? Maalam niya, no? Yung pagbukas, yung sound, ang pagbukas gamit, yung pagtimpla, pag-shake ng bottle. Let's talk about touch and pain, no? That's the first physiological reaction indicating sensation of pain, yung mga baby, yung mga lalaki. No, sa Amerika kasi, yung mga baby pa lang, sinicircumcise na tapos kasi hindi sila last nilalagyan ng anesthesia. No? How did they know na nasasaktan yung mga bata? Tumataas ang heartbeat, no? Kaya nila yung okay. Touch is necessary and comforting. Remember class, children gain information regarding the world around them by touching. No, try to imagine yung mga babies by 6 months, they put everything in their mouth. No, they want the sensation. Siyempre, pag sinabi to ni Freud, oral stage. Pero hindi naman sinabi ni Freud kasi it's all about touching. Okay? Additional, the sense of touch is acute in infants. No? Pag acute, very active and is essential to a baby's growth of physical abilities, language, and cognitive skills, and social-emotional competency. Touch not only impacts short-term development during infancy and early childhood, but also has long-term effects, suggesting the power of positive, gentle touch from birth. Through touch, infants learn about their world, bond with their caregiver, and communicate their needs and wants. Napaka-importante, no? Try to imagine. Siyempre, yung mga, di ba, premature babies, no? Touch therapy, they have a study, no? Nakaschedule yung pag-touch dun sa mga premature. Nag-gain sila ng weight, no? Compared dun sa experiment. No? May group of babies na touch, and then may group of babies na wala. And then, yung mga bata na nasa foster care or bahay, kung 10 baby yan, tapos isa lang yung hindi niya yan kayang hawakan lang. May effect yun. May mga low birth weight. Tapos, syempre, pagka hindi na-stimulate yung body, hindi na-stimulate yung senses, meron din yung effect sa brain development. Let's go to the sensory perception. Gustatory. and olfactory perception. Taste and smell perception in the infant are closely related to basic nutritional needs. It also satisfies a need to interact socially with significant others to enhance survival chances. Both systems provide important sources of exploration and information. Ibig sabihin nito, balik tayo ulit. Relax. Ang active or acute, yung I mean, acute na sense ng mga baby, newborn, sense of hearing, no? Audit. Yung visual, hindi pa. That's the least developed. So talagang yung mga baby nakadepende talaga yan sa ibang. But, tingnan nyo tong taste and smell perception. It's related to basic nutrition. Napaka-importante ng sense of smell. Kasi yung mga bata, yung mga baby, hindi pa yan. Right, like what I said, no? Hindi pa sila masyadong pero maaamoy nila kung ano yung pinifeed mo, kung ano yung pinapakain mo sa kanila. So, ibig sabihin, if it's something bad or maasim, kaya nga gusto ng mga bata, sweet. No? Kasi pagka if it's something asim or smells so bad, syempre, that's not good. That's why, try to think yung mga pagkain. Paano minamarket yung mga pagkain? Ay, pagka mga hanggang 6 months, diba? Milk and breastfeeding. Yung mga, pero pagdating ng mga 6 months, kasama na yung flavor or okay. Exposure to different flavors in amniotic fluid and mother's milk may underlie individual differences in food acceptability. Kung napanood nyo yung In the Womb, it was discussed there na kung ano yung kinakain ng nanay. Kung ano yung favorite ng nanay, pwede na favorite yung ng infant. Kasi yun yung na-digest ng nanay. No? Kasi may flavor din doon sa amniotic fluid. So, individual differences. Iba-iba tayo. And it all started. What happened in the womb? Okay, next. Olfactory discrimination allows infants to show preference for their mother's breast over those of another lactating mother and is perhaps the first step in mother-child bonding. Naaamoy niya kung sino ang nanay niya. Kilala niya kung sino ang nanay niya base sa amoy ng gatas. Imagine, they can discriminate mother. So talagang magbabanta dun sa nanay. It also plays a role in alerting to dangers. Smells also provide comfort. Ito na yung sinabi ko kanina. Kapag ka maasin, meaning panis, huwag nang kainin. Don't look it. Then smell also provides comfort. Like, balik ulit tayo dun sa vision. You depend on smell, you depend on odor. Diba? Balik tayo kay Eric to. Trust versus mistrust. Diba yung sinasabi? Asa na yung milk niya, asa na yung breast. Hindi niya nakikita. Pero pag naamoy niya, okay. Even pag narinig niya, bones. Okay. Okay, we have proprioception. This is the sense that provides information about the position and movement of the body. Input from this sense is processed through the vestibular system. It's chiefly concerned with the body's sense of balance, to keep the body upright and coordinate information from the other senses. It has significant implications for the acquisition of early motor skills, such as rolling and crawling and for sitting still or standing still and moving around. The kinesthetic sense provides directional and spatial advice. It also receives input from muscles and tendons and the vestibular system. Pag sinabi natin proprioception, alam mo kung nasa ng arms mo, nasa ng legs mo, at asaan ang hagdan. You watch yung video ng In the Womb, diniscuss doon na ang proprioception ay nade-develop sa mga twins na early, no, compared sa single birth. Kasi yung mga twins, alam nila na meron silang kasama inside the womb. They know that when they try to reach out, meron silang mahahawakan na ibang kamay, ibang braso. And that would develop their sense of position. No? And kasama rito yung body sense of so that's the proprioception. We also have intermodal coordination. Intermodal perception uses sensory information from more than one sensory modality. Without the ability to integrate information using different senses, our perceptual capacities would be quite limited. For example, a 2-year-old playing with sand, pouring from one plastic container through the fingers of one hand into another container. This involves proprioception, vision, and tactile perception, auditory perception, and perhaps taste. Intermodal matching allows young children to use information from two different sensory modes to detect an object's distance and direction. Experimental findings suggest that we may well be born with the capacity to transfer information from one sensory modality to another. And with added experience, this capacity increases with age. So, ibig sabihin ng intermodal, hindi lang you're using more than one sensory modality. No? Kapag yun, pinasok mo na, no? Naglalagay ka minsan, you pour one plastic container to the fingers of one hand to another container, di ba? Kailangan makita mo, kailangan ma-feel mo, kailangan malaman mo or ma-sense mo kung nasan yung hinahawakan mo. No? Tactile perception or perception. And perhaps taste. No, we're not sure. We're not sure kung yung mga batang naglalaro sa sand, tinitikman yung sand or auditory perception. Um, pag nagsasaling ka na sand sa isang container, kapag ka may natapon, may sound. Diba? Or yung dalawang container, nagbanggaan sila, may sound. May natapon, there's sound. Nabanggaan. No? So you also know, kapag ka yung bata alam din yan, kapag ka nagtama yung dalawang container, ito no, ibig sabihin, nagtama sila, yung sense, no? Na-sense ka rin yung proprioception. For nutrition, we have breastfeeding. Breast is best. Colostrum, the milk produced during pregnancy and just after birth, has been described as liquid gold. Colostrum is packed with nutrients and other important substances that help the infant build up his or her immune system. Most babies will get all the nutrition they need through colostrum during the first few days of life. Breast milk changes by the third to fifth day after birth, becoming much thinner but containing just the right amount of fat, sugar, water, and proteins to support overall physical and neurological development. It provides a source of iron more easily absorbed in the body than the iron found in dietary supplements. It provides resistance against many diseases. It is more easily digested by infants than formula, and it helps babies make a transition to solid foods more easily than if bottle fed. The reason infants need such a high fat content is the process of myelinization, which requires fat to insulate the neurons. Breastfed babies are less likely to develop allergies, asthma, obesity, and heart disease. An alternative to breastfeeding, no, yung formula feeding, may be necessary in various conditions like mother who doesn't produce enough milk, adoptive or two-father family, or if the mother has communicable disease like AIDS. For the continuation of nutrition, we have solid foods. Solid foods may be introduced about 4 to 6 months. When babies develop stable sitting and oral feeding skills, but should be used only as a supplement. to breast milk or formula. By 6 months, the gastrointestinal tract has matured, solids can be digested more easily, and allergic responses are less likely. The infant is also likely to develop teeth around this time, which aids in chewing, excuse me, solid food. Iron-enriched cereal, strained fruits, vegetables, and meats are also essential. Generally, salt, sugar, processed meat, juices, and canned foods should be avoided. Let's continue talking about nutrition. We have malnutrition. Malnutrition is a condition in which a person does not consume sufficient food of any kind that can result in several illnesses, severe weight loss, and even death. In the 1960s, formula companies led campaigns in developing countries to encourage mothers to feed their babies on infant formula. Many mothers felt that formula would be superior to breast milk and began using formula. The use of formula can certainly be healthy under conditions in which there is adequate clean water with which to mix the formula and adequate means to sanitize bottles and nipples. However, in many of these countries, such conditions were not available and babies often were given diluted, contaminated formula, which made them become sick with diarrhea and become dehydrated. So overall, breast milk is the best. Kasi kung nanay ka, hindi mo na kailangang maglinis ng bote, magtimpla ng gatas. Okay, next we have, ito yung condition ng malnutrition, no? Marasmus and kwashiorkor. Children in developing countries and countries experiencing the harsh condition of war are at risk for two major types of malnutrition. Infantile marasmus refers to starvation due to lack of calories and protein. Children who do not receive adequate nutrition lose fat and muscle until their bodies can no longer function. Babies who are breastfed are much less at risk of malnutrition than those who are bottle fed. After weaning, children who have diets deficient in protein may experience kwashiorkor, or the disease of the displaced child, often occurring after another child has been born and taken over breastfeeding. These result in a loss of appetite and swelling of the abdomen, as the body begins to break down the vital organs as a source of protein. Meron din tayong tinatawag na milk anemia, no, lack of iron from drinking cow's milk in place of more nutritive foods. Sa kakabigay natin ng formula, milk sa mga bata, no, nagkakaroon sila ng lack of iron in the diet. Kasi dapat yung mga bata, yung mga age 1 to 3 years old, pwede na silang kumain ng mga solid food, kaya lang ang ginagawa, pinapainom sila ng mga milk, no? Ang ginagawang pacifier, pag nagre-rest, no, nag-walk para pag naghingi ng dede, bibigyan ng dede. Kaya yung habang lumalaki, binabawasan ang pag-intake ng milk kasi pwede na silang kumain ng solid food na dun sila pwede makakuha ng source of iron, no, like meat. Why? Because the calcium in milk interferes with the absorption of iron in the diet as well. We also have stunting. Now, this is the failure of children to grow to a normal height for their age due to severe and chronic malnutrition. Some critics contend that Asian children are genetically small and therefore that Western norms make it appear as if India and Africa have more stunted children than they really do. However, children of Asian and African descent, born and nurtured in North America, are as tall as those of European descent. Thus, malnutrition, not genes, accounts for most stunting worldwide. The data show that basic nutrition is still unavailable to many children in the developing world. So kapag kayo, nagkapamilya, nagkaanak, make sure no, to give proper nutrition to your children para hindi mastant yung growth nila mataas. Next, we have sleep and health. For the infant sleep requirements, from 0 to 2 years, the average is 12.8 hours per day. For a newborn, it's 14 to 17 hours per day. No, mostly newborns sleep throughout, no, within 24 hours. Gumigising lang sila kapag dedede, tapos pagka dede, tutulog ulit sila. We have SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, and sudden unexpected infant death. So yung dating tawag sa SIDS, naging siyang SUID. So SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome, or crib death, these are apparently healthy babies stop breathing during sleep. It's the most common cause of death in infants between 1 and 12 months. It's most likely to occur between 2 and 5 months. It's a period when reflexive behavior is weakening. What's the causes of SIDS and the risk factors? No, babies aged 2 to 4 months, babies put to sleep on their stomach, nakadapa, premature and low birth weight babies, lalaki, males, lower SES socioeconomic status, African Americans, babies of teenage mothers, and babies of mother who smoke or use narcotics during pregnancy. Sleep and health, no? So how can we prevent SIDS? Back to sleep, may sinasabing back to sleep. Back sleeping is recommended for every sleep, meaning huwag patutulugin ng nakadapa ang mga bata, nakahiga sila, no? Yung likod nakasayad sa kama. And then no soft bedding blankets because these are potential hazards. Pwede silang masuffocate, pwedeng matabunan. Pagka naman masyadong malambot yung kama, di ba, pwedeng lumubog sila kahit na pina-backslip mo, baka mamaya bigla silang mapadapa. Tapos dapat bare yung kanilang hihigaan, walang masyadong unan or kumot. And then we have co-sleeping. Co-sleeping is bed sharing, no? Yung mga, this is common sa Philippines din, no? Mga sa Asia, nakatabi na mga nanay or yung mga parents, yung anak nila. Diba? Kasi yung iba breastfeeding, so mas convenient yun katabi mo na yung baby. Plus, there's a benefit of skin-to-skin contact, no? Yung mga sinasabi sa attachment theory na this would increase attachment ng mother and and the child. But then, co-sleeping would pose a risk of child suffocation. Ibig sabihin, kapag may tendency kasi na kapag kakatabi mo yung baby, pwede mo kasi silang madaganan. Bakit din? Kasi tignan mo, napakahirap mag-alaga ng infant. Like, kung ikaw yung nanay, ikaw yung nanganak, napagod ka na, diba? Or like, walang masyadong tumutulong sa'yo sa pag-aalaga. You will feel exhausted. And if you feel exhausted, kapag ka natutulog ka, pwedeng malalim, no? Ang iyong tulog. Yung consistent na pag-aalaga ng bata. Okay? And then, yung increased risk with parental drug and alcohol use, lalo na dun sa mga nag-alcohol at saka nag-drugs. Pagkakatabi nila yung mga baby, pwedeng hindi sila aware kasi high, di ba? O kaya, nalasing. Di mo alam, nadaganan mo na pala yung baby. Co-sleeping, um, it's different per culture, no? Sa mga Asian and African mothers, they prefer nakatabi nila yung kanilang mga baby because they worry about separation. And then yung mga European and North American mothers naman, they worry more about their lack of privacy. If you're going to look at the American households, iba ang kwarto ng nanay, iba ang kwarto ng baby. Kasi yung mga Americans na yan, may mga gadgets sila, may mga baby monitor, no? Minomonitor nila kapag may umiiyak yung mga baby nila, hindi nila kasama yung mga baby nila. But then, they also recommend na the baby stays in the same bedroom. Not necessarily on the same surface kung nasaan yung uh, hinihigaan ng parents or nanay, but in the same bedroom. Para kung nagkaroon ng problem, malalapitan pa rin ng parent. Okay, next we have sleep schedules. No, nighttime waking is common. And this is one of the reported problem, no, ng mga parent. This is infant sleep related problem. Nagigising ang mga baby sa gabi. This is common. Ang nangyayari lang kasi, nakakapuyat. Mapupuyat ang nanay, mapupuyat ang tatay, mapupuyat yung mga nag-aalaga kasi kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, no, napapagod ka ng mag-alaga. Although most of the time, newborns are sleeping, pero magbabantay ka rin. Pero gising ka rin sa gabi. No, kaya yung nanay, tatay, pwedeng schedule sila kung sino magtitimpla ng gatas, no, magbabantay sa baby. Lalo na class kapag ka umiiyak ang baby, no? Tapos, or hindi makatulog, or may masakit ang tiyan, o may colic. That's a problem. No, meron akong pamangkin, no, kapag grabe, para lang yun matulog, sinasakay sa sa kotse, tapos iniikot dun sa village para lang siya matulog. No, no, the means, no, yung ginagawa ng ibang. Okay, many infants sleep 6 hours during night by 6 months. No, pagdating ng 6 months, regular na. Yung kanilang sleep, diretso, no, 6 hours. But then, well, for my two babies, share ko lang, wala akong naging problema dun sa mga anak ko. Hindi naman nila ako tinuyat. No? That's one advantage of studying psychology. Kasi pinag-aaralan natin itong mga ito. Alam natin kung anong mga dapat natin gawin sa ating mga magiging. Okay, not doing so does not indicate a serious problem kasi may mga individual differences din. Kasi pwede, no? Ang mga baby kasi may routine yan. You know, no? Law of effect, no? Or conditioning. Siyempre, yan ang mga technique, no? Sasanayin mo sila sa mga routine nila para sila mismo malalaman na rin nila sa katawan nila na, oh, it's time to sleep. Para hindi ka magpupuyat. Now, let's talk about immunization. Infants mouth every single object they find as one of their typical developmental tasks. They learn through their senses, and tasting objects stimulates their brain and provides a sensory experience, as well as learning. Infants have much contact with dirty surfaces. They lay on a carpet that most likely has been contaminated by adults walking on it. They mouth keys, rattles, toys, and books. They crawl on the floor. They hold on to furniture to walk and much more. No? How can we prevent infants from getting sick? One possible answer is immunization. Okay, this is an image I got from the internet, no, from DOH. No, yung schedule ng bakuna ng mga bata, 1 taon pababa ng mga ah, immunization or bakuna, vaccine, no? So, pagkapanganak, kailangan mo ng BCG, tapos hepatitis B. Hepatitis B, nakaka-damage to ng liver. So, this is a virus. Hepa V virus, if you are protected, hindi, you are protected from the Hepa B. Plus, you have the pentavalent vaccine, oral polio, pneumococcal conjugate, measles, mumps, rubella. Bakit kailangan ng immunization? Para nga for prevention of the disease or kung sakali man, pagka may mga booster pa rin kasi to, no? So, pwedeng ma-prevent, pero example, measles, mumps, rubella, pagka nahawa ka, hindi siya ganun ka. Like for example, yung polio, it has pag na-polio ko, di ba, hindi ka makakalakad. If there are mga diseases na preventable, tapos meron naman available na vaccine, magandang magpapabakuna tayo. Pero halimbawa, we have to be careful din, like yung Dengvac siya, hindi pa yun na-test. Tapos tinuloy nila na nagbakuna sila ng mga bata, so maraming mga namatay kasi hindi pa kompleto yung testing nun. Plus, yung sa COVID-19 na vaccine, no, dinedevelop pa rin. I'm not sure if you personally would volunteer yourself to have yourself vaccinated. Mas maganda siguro kapag alam na natin yung kung meron siyang mga side effect at saka kung talaga napag-aralan ng husto yung mga vaccine.